A man was investigated twice, tried once, and acquitted of everything. The FBI found nothing. Even the journalist who made the documentary that nearly destroyed him said after his death that he never saw any wrongdoing. So why in 2026 are we still here? Why are new lawsuits being filed by people who spent decades publicly defending him, writing books about him, and appearing on Oprah for him? I want to talk about what is really happening to the Michael Jackson estate. This is complicated, and you deserve more than a hot take. Welcome to the Yasmin Breakdown. If you like these kinds of stories, make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications. I made a video recently about the racist imagery that was targeting the Obamas. And what I kept coming back to was this question: how do powerful people get taken down? Sometimes it's racism, sometimes it's misogyny, and sometimes it's money. Today, I want to follow the money, not to defend Michael Jackson, not to dismiss anyone's pain, but to ask a question that nobody seems to want to ask out loud. Here's what I need you to sit with for the next few minutes. What is the legal advantage, the actual documented strategic advantage of waiting until someone is dead before you sue them? Because there is one. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And it changes how you not only look at this case, but every celebrity estate lawsuit you will ever hear about. I am going to show you something that will genuinely surprise you. One of the people suing Michael Jackson's estate right now, their family member wrote an entire book defending him, appeared on Oprah defending him, and the lawsuit itself explained why they changed their story. I'm going to read you that explanation, and I want you to decide for yourself whether it holds up. Before we go further, I want to say this clearly. Child sexual abuse is real. Delayed disclosure is real. Trauma does real things to memory and courage and voice. We have to hold that truth. And we also have to be willing to ask hard questions about a legal system that makes suing a dead man easier, cheaper, and safer than suing a live one. Both things can be true at the same time. Here's what we're going to cover today: the full timeline, criminal as well as civil, the specific legal advantages of suing someone after they've died, the pattern of change stories, and what that timeline actually looks like. And the question I keep coming back to: if the goal is justice, why does it keep looking like money? Stay with me. Let us start at the beginning, not 2019, not 2013. Let's start with what we actually know, what was proven, what was investigated, and what the FBI, not Twitter, not some documentary, what the FBI actually found. Because that foundation matters for everything that is going to come after. Before we get into lawsuits, I want to make sure that we are working from the same foundation, because a lot of what gets said about Michael Jackson online treats accusations and convictions the same, and they are not. Michael Jackson was born in 1958 in Gary, Indiana. By his 20s, he was the most famous entertainer on earth, all of earth, not just America. His album Thriller is still the best-selling album of all time. He changed music, he changed dance, he even changed what global celebrity looked like. He was also, though, for the last 2 decades of his life, under constant legal siege. Between 1992 and 2005, the FBI provided technical and investigative assistance to California law enforcement agencies investigating Jackson. They also investigated threats made against Jackson himself. In 1993, a 13-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler accused Michael Jackson of sexual abuse. Prosecutors presented evidence to two separate grand juries. Neither grand jury indicted. The criminal case went nowhere. Jackson did settle a civil lawsuit for $23 million, but that settlement included an explicit statement that it was not an admission of guilt. Jackson said publicly that he settled it to protect his career, but he later regretted it. Then in 2003, a documentary called Living with Michael Jackson aired. Jackson had allowed filmmaker Martin Bashir into his life for 8 months. In it, Jackson was seen holding hands with a 13-year-old cancer survivor named Gavin Arvizo and defending his practice of sharing his bedroom with children. The fallout was immediate. Santa Barbara District Attorney Tom Sneddon, who had tried and failed to bring Jackson to trial in 1993, reopened the investigation. By November 2003, Jackson was arrested. What followed was one of the most heavily covered criminal trials in American history. Gavin Arvizo and his brother testified. Prosecutors called witnesses. The defense called Macaulay Culkin, Chris Tucker, and others. Jackson pleaded not guilty and said he would never settle this time. On June 13th, 2005, Michael Jackson was acquitted on all counts. 4 years later, on June 25th, 2009, Michael Jackson died of acute propofol and benzodiazepine intoxication at his home in Los Angeles. He was 50. After his death, Martin Bashir, the journalist whose documentary had helped trigger the 2003 investigation, told ABC News that he never saw any wrongdoing on Michael Jackson's part. The FBI files released after Jackson's death noted that there were no outstanding leads and no credible evidence items. That is the criminal record. Investigated for over a decade, tried by a jury, acquitted. FBI found nothing actionable. Now, here's where it gets complicated. Because while the criminal justice system says not guilty, the civil courts tell a different story, or at least they're being asked to. Here's the timeline after Jackson's death. 2013, Wade Robson reverses his testimony. Wade Robson is an Australian choreographer. In 2005, he was a defense witness at Jackson's criminal trial. He testified under oath that Jackson had never abused him. His testimony literally helped acquit Jackson. 4 years after Jackson's death, though, in 2013, Robson reversed his position entirely. He filed a lawsuit claiming Jackson had molested him repeatedly over 7 years when he was a child. I want you to hold that for a moment. He testified for the defense under oath in a criminal trial. Then, only after the man was dead, he said the opposite. 2014, James Safechuck files a similar lawsuit. James Safechuck has also spent time with Michael Jackson when he was a child. In 2014, he alleged that Jackson abused him as well. He had never made these claims publicly while Jackson was alive. In March 2019, a two-part documentary called Leaving Neverland aired, featuring both Robson and Safechuck describing abuse in explicit detail. The documentary won an Emmy. It reignited global conversations about Jackson's legacy. It also, and this is important, became the trigger for more lawsuits. In 2021, the Robson and Safechuck lawsuits were dismissed. Then an appeals court revived them. The estate has continued to fight. But in February of 2026, four siblings, Edward, Dominic, Marie Nicole, and Aldo Casio, filed a federal lawsuit alleging child sex trafficking and abuse, claiming Jackson drugged and assaulted them for over a decade. Now, here's the part I promised you I would read. The Casio family are not strangers to defending Michael Jackson. Edward Casio wrote a 2011 book 2 years after Michael Jackson's death called My Friend Michael, An Ordinary Friendship with an Extraordinary Man. The book included family statements that, according to the estate's attorney Martin Singer, consistently and repeatedly asserted that Michael never harmed any of them or anyone else. In 2010, Edward, Frank, and Marie Nicole Casio appeared on Oprah Winfrey's show, and all agreed that Jackson had never harmed them. Their 2026 lawsuit explains this. It says Jackson's years of brainwashing prevented them from seeking help while he was alive and for years afterwards. It was not until Leaving Neverland aired in 2019 that the four siblings were, and I am quoting directly from the lawsuit here, deprogrammed and forced for the first time to become conscious of the reality that Jackson's abuse was wrong. The estate also notes that before the lawsuit was filed, Jackson's estate had offered the Casio family $690,000 as compensation. Let that land for a moment before we move on. Now, I want to explain something that most coverage of this story never addresses directly. There are very specific legal and financial advantages to suing a celebrity's estate after they die. And understanding these advantages changes how you absorb everything I have just shared with you. Advantage number one, the dead cannot testify. This is the most significant one. Michael Jackson cannot take the stand. He cannot dispute claims, contradict accusers, provide context, or present his version of events. In any legal proceeding, it is essentially his word against her word, or, the prosecution against the defense. Removing one of those people is an enormous advantage for the claimant. Advantage number two, no risk of defamation. You cannot defame the dead. If you make claims about a living person and they are found out to be not true, they can sue you. If you make claims about a dead person, no matter how serious, no matter how damaging, you face zero legal blowback. The estate's own attorney flagged this directly, saying these lawsuits come more than 15 years after Jackson's death, thus carrying no risk of being sued for defamation. Advantage number three, the estate is worth a fortune. Michael Jackson's estate is one of the most valuable in the world. Despite Jackson earning nothing for his image and likeness in 2006, 2007, and 2008, because of the damage the allegations have done to him, the estate has since recovered dramatically. Royalties, intellectual property, licensing, the Beatles catalog. There is a very large pool of money available to anyone who successfully brings a claim. Advantage number four, the lower legal bar. Criminal cases require proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That is an extremely high standard and why Jackson was acquitted. Civil cases require only a preponderance of evidence, meaning more likely than not. It is significantly easier to win a civil case than it is to win a criminal one, especially against someone who cannot defend themselves. Advantage number five, settlement pressure. Estate administrators are often motivated to close cases and move on, then fight every claim through years of litigation. This creates settlement pressure that has nothing to do with innocence or guilt. The $690,000 that was offered to the Casio family before the lawsuit was ever filed is a real world example of this. Taken together, these five factors create a legal environment that is structurally advantageous to sue a dead celebrity. That does not mean every claim is false, but it does mean that the incentives are not neutral. So here's a question that's been in the back of my head, and I want to ask it plainly. If Michael Jackson abused those children deserve justice. Full stop. The fact that he is no longer with us does not erase harm, does not silence survivors, and does not close the moral account. But a jury heard the evidence in a full public criminal trial with witnesses, with cross-examination, with the best prosecutors Santa Barbara County had to offer. And they said not guilty. The FBI investigated for over a decade. They found nothing actionable. The people now filing civil lawsuits are, in several cases, the same people who previously and publicly defended Michael Jackson. Not privately, not quietly, but on Oprah, in published books, under oath in a criminal courtroom. And every single major lawsuit against the estate was filed after Jackson died, when he could no longer defend himself, when defamation law no longer applied, and when the estate was most financially vulnerable to settlement pressure. I'm not saying these people are lying. Trauma is complicated. Delayed disclosure is real. Brainwashing is a documented phenomenon in these kinds of cases. But I am saying the timing is worth examining. The incentives are worth examining. And the legal mechanics that make suing a dead man easier than suing a living one, those are worth examining too. Because what we're watching is not just a story about Michael Jackson. It's a story about how the law works, about who has power in a courtroom and who does not, about what happens when the wealthiest estates in the world become targets, and the person whose name is on that estate is no longer here to say a word in their own defense. This is not unique to Michael Jackson. Prince's estate has faced multiple legal challenges. Whitney Houston's estate, James Brown's estate has faced decades of litigation. The pattern repeats because the incentives repeat. Celebrity estates are targets, not always unfairly. Some claims are completely legitimate, but the combination of enormous wealth, a defendant who cannot speak, and a legal standard lower than the one that already acquitted him creates a situation that deserves scrutiny, not just sympathy. And to that I say, Michael Jackson spent his entire life as a target for his eccentric behavior, for his wealth, for the way he transformed himself, for the unprecedented size of his talent and his fame. The criminal justice system, as absolutely imperfect as it is, gave him his day in court and said, not guilty. But death opened a door that the law cannot close, a door where accusers face no cross-examination, no defamation risk, and no rebuttal from the man himself, where the incentives clearly point toward filing a claim and seeing if the estate will simply pay. Whether these suits represent delayed justice or something else, that is a question each of you has to answer for yourself. I am not here to tell you what to think. I am here to make sure you have enough to think it through. If you like this take, please leave a comment, give me a like, and make sure you subscribe. And check out this video, which has another deep dive. All right, y'all, that's one to grow on. See you next time. Peace.